Welcome to Trustbuilders. Today I have a special episode for you because I get to talk to Dale Pease from A1 Concrete. Dale Pease is the Director of Marketing of the corporate parent at A1 Concrete Leveling, which is a national concrete care franchise in the United States. Before joining A1, Dale owned a web development agency for more than 25 years, so he has a ton of experience. But he joined A1 Concrete a while back, and he was able to grow their organic traffic from 8,000 to 61,000 users per month. While that is very impressive, we're going to actually dive into their learning center today. A1 Concrete's learning center is getting 49,000 clicks a month, and it generates about 10,000 leads. Now, we're going to dive deep into Dale's secret sauce of that success and how they used the methodology of the Ask You Answer to achieve that success. Hi Dale, welcome to the Trust Builder podcast. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thank you. I'm great. I'm excited to be on as well.
Good stuff. So we actually have missed each other in Chicago in the Impact Live conference, which is such a bummer because we really found out afterwards that we really would have liked to have this conversation. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation now.
Yeah,
but in preparation for this call and how I actually got to know you is about your learning center. You had shared a really crazy, awesome success story in the Impact Live community. And that's where I want to start, if that's all right with you, our conversation today.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was in November. You had, just looking down and I get the numbers right, I think you had 19,000 out of your 25,000 clicks coming from your learning center. And that is like mind-blowing. So I want to start with, where are you at today?
Yeah, we finished up May, and I looked at the numbers yesterday, and for May of this year, we're at 49,000 clicks, and of those, 46,000 go directly to the Learning Center. So it's even a much higher percentage and much higher number as well.
And that's just May?
And that's just May. Yeah, these numbers are just for a 1 month period.
So, Dale, just for anyone listening, let's put this into context. You do concrete leveling. So someone who has a cracked pavement or a garage driveway that is made out of cement, you guys come and you fill it up, you level it out, you do it that it lasts as long as the cement actually lasts, right?
Right. Yeah. We're a real kind of niche company, so we don't have broad appeal. Although it could be argued we do, because everybody has concrete. If you own a home, if you own a business, you probably have concrete somewhere, but not something that would typically get a lot of traffic. But over the past 2 years since we've had our content manager, our content has increased dramatically just by creating content in the Learning Center.
Yeah. So let's start off with very simple. What is a learning center? If people might have heard the term, but a lot of people interpret it as a very different thing. Let's pick apart, what is a learning center and how is it different from a blog?
Yeah, there's some respects you can say they're similar. A blog is you're writing content and putting it out there, but I really see the difference in really the emphasis. If you look at a learning center, focus on that word learning, its sole purpose is to teach. Its sole purpose is to educate, and not just about anything, but about your particular subject, the thing that you're an expert on. Blogs, I've seen blogs where they just go off and start talking about their cats and talking about the vacation they went on and all that kind of stuff. But every article that we have on the Learning Center is specifically focused on the people that come to our site and educating them about concrete care, we call it, because we're a little broader than just leveling. But basically, we want to be the place where if you have a question about concrete and how you take care of your concrete, we're the ones that are going to answer that. It also, just a little bit of a side on that, a lot of times it could be more than just written content. A learning center can have video, it can have downloadable guides, which we have downloadable guides, but we are just now starting on the video side of things as well. So most everything we have on there right now is just written content.
Yeah, and maybe just to add there a little bit, sometimes or a lot of times, learning centers also have some self service tools, some calculators, assessment tools, whatever it is. But if you are just starting out with video, that's probably one of the next steps for you then,
Right,
after you tackled video.
right. Yeah, we hired our writer about 2 years ago, and we hired our videographer about a year ago. Uh,
Mm.
and we had our videographer focused more on internal training, but now we're shifting toward creating content for the learning center. And that, I think, the numbers that you started off with, talking about our growth and our clicks and our traffic, and we had 100,000 page views last month as well. That's really great. We have increased our number of leads and that kind of stuff, but it hasn't been quite the level that we want. And so I feel like the video side is the next step to really start to build that trust and to really start to get people to want to go from, I learned something here, to, wow, I want to work with this company. And so that's our next focus, is getting them to take that next step, getting them to decide A1 is the kind of company that we want to work with. And I think video is going to be huge for that.
Yeah. So you just alluded to the traffic is nice, but why would someone who listens to this and who might just have a blog, right? Like a chronological putting out every week, but it's difficult to sift through and find the things that you want. And I think that's one of the key benefits of a learning center, that you have ability to filter on the side by role or by type of content or by topic or whatever it is, and very quickly find the answer to the question that I have.
Right.
But if someone's listening and say, you know what, that's nice, but content is a lot of work. I am not going to hire a. It's nice that they have so many page views, but I'm not going to hire a internal content marketer or even a videographer. But why is it so important to have that learning center? You said it's to build trust, but what does it ultimately do other than generate traffic and some leads?
Yeah. Our ultimate goal is to create customers who already know they want to work with us before they call us, before we even know they exist. So we are starting to see it already, but our website through our learning center is becoming really our biggest salesperson. It is
Mm-hmm.
the tool that drives more sales. I said earlier that it wasn't really driving the kind of sales that I wanted. It wasn't driving it at the percentage
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted it compared to the visitors that we have, but it's driving a large number of sales. It is by far our best tool to drive actual sales, actual dollars in the bank account, which as a business, that's ultimately our goal there. Having a place that educates people when they come in so that they know whether we are a fit or not a fit is huge for us. Not only does it become our best sales tool, it also enables our actual salespeople, the ones that go out and talk to prospects, to have much more highly qualified prospects than they had before. And so their close rates are starting to increase. They're starting to go out, and our goal really is to get to the point where they can go out and say, we saw that you looked at all this content on our website. Do you have any more questions? And have them say no. All we need is like that final number, and we're ready to go. So that's where we're moving towards. So it's minimizing a lot of the effort that we had in other places and replacing that with the website, with that learning center.
So that's really awesome. That leads me to my next question. what kind of content do you have in the Learning Center? And I don't mean written versus video. What kind of questions are you answering? Or what kind of problems are you solving? What is it that I can expect if I go to your Learning Center? And where do you get the questions from? Or how do you know what to put in there?
Yeah. We started out when we first started 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, starting to create the content. Our content manager, our writer, spent a lot of time talking with our sales reps and asking, what are the questions that you hear all the time? The folks that answer the phones, what are the questions that you hear every time someone calls in? So we looked at those kind of questions, and we used Marcus Sheridan has the big five, and we really looked at how do those questions fit within that, cost and versus and the different kinds of questions that he has. And then we started creating content based on that. So that started us off on a really good foot because we were able to answer those questions that they get all the time. And as an aside, that becomes really good for assignment selling, where someone calls up and says, hey, I've got this question about it. And someone on the phone could do a real quick answer to it, but then they can say, I'm going to send you a link to this article where we really dive deep into answering that question. But then we actually started from there digging deeper into Google and what kind of questions people are asking that are related to the questions
Mm.
that we've already answered. And that really helped us figure out much more broadly, not just based on the individuals we have, but much more broadly based on the world. What are the questions that they're asking related to the care of their concrete? And that really has been what I think has blown the doors off of the number of visitors that we get, because we've started to do a lot of work on trying to get those visitors that are asking questions that we might not have thought of to come to our site. So that's been huge for us.
Let's stay with that for a minute. You mentioned the big five, and for anyone listening, you are referring to the big five out of the They Ask You Answer. And that's basically cost and price, it's versus and comparisons, it's potential problems, best of, and reviews. And then there's some bonus categories of how to do X or what is X. But what are, keeping that in mind, what are the most successful pieces of content that you've done, and why do you feel those were so successful?
Yeah, the our biggest page right now that drives the most traffic is a page on how do you pour self-leveling concrete, or how do you use self-leveling concrete, which it's a DIY question.
Mm-hmm.
We have found kind of those DIY questions are really the questions that drive a lot of traffic. And it makes sense. You go to Google a lot of times and you say, how do I do this thing? I have a house and I want to fix it. How do I do the thing?
I'm
And
one of those.
yeah, I do it all the time. So that page in particular, how do you use self-leveling concrete, is huge for us, because if people have uneven concrete, a lot of times they think they can just pour a thin layer of concrete and smooth it out. And that's actually a very bad idea. Like, you have in your mind that's a great idea, but it's not a good idea, because that's only going to last you probably a year before that concrete starts to crack, because self-leveling concrete is not really made for that. It's really more for a subfloor if you're putting down flooring and you want to make sure you have a smooth surface. Being able to answer that question, and again, Marcus says this a lot, or Impact says it a lot, is if someone asks a question that's related to our industry, we want to be the one that answers it. Whether it's about our competition, whether it's about a solution that they can do themselves rather than hiring us, we want to be the one that answers it. And then maybe from a business perspective, maybe at some point they'll say, hey, this company was really helpful, and why don't I just work with them instead of trying to do this myself? Or as I'm looking at competition, it's, wow, they actually talked about their competitors How crazy is that? And maybe they're the kind of people that I want to work with that are transparent and honest about the industry. But that's the biggest thing that drives traffic. Probably the second biggest would be pricing pages, cost pages. How much does this thing cost is really huge for us as well.
So you just mentioned a keyword there. You said transparent. And one of the things, if you're not familiar with they ask you answer philosophy, you might think to yourself, why would you try to answer a DIY? Why would you want to tell people how to do it if they want a DIY?
Right. Yeah, and this honestly, this is a debate that we had quite a bit with our head of sales. It's why would you put on the website how they can do it themselves instead of hiring us? And it really was, I think the main answer to that was what I said earlier about if someone's going to ask the question, we want to be the one that answers it. We don't want them going somewhere else. We don't want them finding the answer somewhere else. We want them to come to our site and get the answer. You have to look at it in how often is someone going to come to our site looking for the answer and end up hiring us versus someone who comes to our site wanting to hire us and they end up doing a DIY because we had an article on that. It's you have to look at one way or the other and which one is more likely. And I definitely fall on the side that they're much more likely to find out through reading an article that is unbiased. It tells you the pros of doing it and where it's good to use it, and but it also tells you the cons and when it's not good to use it. That the potential then at that point is for them to say, then I'll just hire you guys to level a concrete instead of doing it myself. And we do it with caulking. We even have an article on how to self-level concrete, how to lift and level your concrete by yourself using spray foam in cans and all kinds of stuff. But it's, again, if people look for that, we want them to come to our website. We want our website to be the place you find answers rather than going somewhere else.
Yeah. Um, it's a funny debate always because you have those people who are set that they want to do it themselves. And I fall into that category a lot of times, like tiling a bathroom, I'll do it myself. But if I come to your website, and we're talking concrete, it's not like something you can just wipe off again. Even if it was, you are a with that article, with telling them how to do it yourself, you would disqualify someone who's a bad fit because they are anyway going to do them by themselves. They probably have a very big budget limitation, or maybe they have a certain reason of why they want to do it themselves.
Right.
And then they will do it by themselves, whether or not you explain it or not. But as you said, if they have a good experience with your company at a bigger project or a later time, or maybe it didn't turn out the way they expected
Right.
it, and they will give you a call and then ask you to come and fix it or do the next big project. Maybe they're doing an indoor floor for a bathroom and now they're doing a garage driveway. But the other side of that coin is as well by being transparent about the potential problems that you can run into. I didn't know that self-leveling concrete is not it's not going to be as long lasting as other concrete. So definitely learned something today, but it's a potential problem that I might not be aware of as someone who is not in the business. So now you taught me something new, and that's a really good reason because I as a buyer want to avoid making mistakes.
Right.
I would definitely give you a call because now I trust you because you shared that potential problem with me
Right. Yeah.
transparently and honestly.
That phrase you just used, as a buyer, I don't want to make mistakes. That's really a driving kind of mantra that I have in my mind when we create content. It's we want to create in our buyer the confidence that they know what they're doing. Everything we do is trying to give them the tools to feel like they're the hero, that they can go home to their spouse or whatever and say, I found this solution to our problem and it's the right solution. It's not, I think it might be, and we'll have to see how it goes and that kind of stuff. We want to really get to the point where our customers know through the entire process and beyond after we're done that they made the right choice and they were smart in how they did it. So that's, and not trying to trick them into believing that, actually educate them and actually, as honest and transparent as we can, show them that yes, you are making the right choice here, or you're not, like you said earlier. Show them that this isn't the best choice for you. That's huge. We talk a lot about that as well. We're not the best fit for everybody. So if we can show them right away that we're not, then they can get on and find that right answer for them somewhere else.
I work with a lot of construction and prefab companies. And one thing that really frustrates me is in the industry, it's starting to change a bit thanks to things like the Ask You Answer and just buyer demands. But it really frustrates me that we are talking about how much does a concrete driveway cost on average?
$1,000, $2,000. You're talking to replace it or our level?
Just we're talking about a huge purchase, no? It's like thousands
Right.
of dollars.
Right. Yeah.
And it's potentially something that I have to live with for 50 years or so. And it could be an eyesore, it could be not functioning right, I could create trip hazards. There's serious consequences to it. What really frustrates me, and maybe this is my 2-minute rant for today, is that on your website I can come and I can learn as much as I want. I can go as deep as I want until I feel comfortable that I'm making the right choice. But the average number of website pages or that I can spend on a website reading content is sometimes only 10 to 12 minutes of my time. Right? I'm in the market right now. I'm building a house here in Italy, in a prefab house. Most websites have about 10 to 12 minutes worth of reading time. I would say that building a house, my forever house, that I'm spending hundreds of thousands of euros on, is a
Yeah.
little bit more worth my time than 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to get off my soapbox right now, but that is like the biggest frustration. So I can definitely hear your customers go, yes, thank you. All right. Let's have a look at your sort of lead generation. You were mentioning before that you are generating a ton of leads, but you want to, I think in a previous conversation you mentioned you want to increase that by about 20% until the end of the year. Is that right?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Um, yeah. And it's the actual quote requests is how we measure things. So how often does someone fill out a form and submit to get a quote? We basically looked at, okay, we're bringing in all this traffic. So how can we actually start to convert more of those people? So I touched on a little bit, video is going to be huge for us. We're starting to create, more video that connects the visitor to the site to us in a more intimate way. So it's video that they see our people, they hear our people talking about, and they can start to feel like, yes, this is a company we want to work with. One of the other things that we're doing right now, we use a tool called Lucky Orange, which is a really, I don't know, scary but cool kind of tool where you basically can monitor everybody that visits your site and you can watch how they interact with your site. And you can see where they click and where they push, scroll, and all that kind of stuff. And so we're in the process of doing, like on that specific page I talked about with the self-leveling concrete. So when someone gets to that page, what do they do? How far down do they read? What do they click after they're done? And so the idea is, now that we have all these people visiting our site, what are they doing when they're there? And how can we, the Lucky Orange has this thing called rage click. So when do they rage click? When do they get so frustrated on our site that they're not getting the kind of answers that they want? That they rage click is literally they'll click on their button on their mouse because they're so mad. So that's the next step. It's okay, we have all these visitors to the site. Now let's really look at how they're using the site and where they're frustrated, and so that we can point them in the right direction and say, okay, it really looks like when they get to this part of the site, they were looking for something they're not getting. So how can we make sure that thing is there next time? And that, I think, really, and I keep using the word think, and because this is early on in the experiment, but it's obviously talking with a lot of companies who do this a lot and a lot of people that do it as well. I think we're on the right path, but um, that's what this year is focused on, is really that next step of converting all those visitors into actual buyers potentially.
So you talked a lot about your videographer and hiring a videographer. Can you tell us a little bit about the process and what you were looking for when you were making that hire?
I hired both the content manager and the videographer. I read a book called Who. I actually have it here because I always reference it. It's Solving Your Number One Problem, which is hiring good people, by Jeff Smart and Randy Street. And it really focused on this idea of, when you hire somebody, you should be, I forget the percentage they gave, 95% sure that they are the right hire for this position and they're going to knock it out of the park. They're really against the idea of hiring people and seeing if they're going to work, or just getting someone to fill the position. So working with Impact, which I worked with them with both hires, it was really, I wanted to make sure when we said, yes, this is the person we want to hire, that we were sure they were going to be great. And that happened with both cases. The videographer specifically was, I was getting frustrated because it took a few months to find the right one, and I was almost ready to settle. We had somebody that was, we think maybe they're going to do it, and I think it was Connor at Impact, which I think Connor's been on here. Did I see that?
Yeah.
So um, I think he told me, he said, no, he said, don't settle, get the right person for the job. And I pushed through, and we found the videographer we have, and we knew when we hired him that he was going to be amazing, and he's amazing. Um, so the one thing that we did with the videographer, and I watched your last podcast with Thad from the Metal Roofing channel, and I know he had this, you asked the question, or he said the idea of giving them an assignment.
Yeah.
um, we did have our videographer do an assignment for us, and create a video, a test to see how he would do. And I did get a lot of pushback. I had some videographers that were like, no, I'm just not going to do it. And we said, okay. And we didn't talk with them anymore. And I get it. And I totally get Thad's reasoning. Thad said, no, they don't really do that anymore. But the thing that was really helpful for me, more than like the actual quality of the video, which Josh, who we hired, did an awesome intro video, but it was really the idea that this was a person who was really interested in working for us. And we asked him after. It wasn't like right away, it was through the interview process. It's okay, we really like you, but we have this last kind of test that we would like to do. I'm a firm believer through this hiring process of having something to get some skin in the game on their part, for them to say, yes, this is really something I'm interested in. Now, doing a minute video or whatever is a lot of work, and I totally
Yeah.
get that. And maybe it's not the right idea, but maybe coming up with something that shows that, yes, this is something that they're really interested in, because we wanted somebody who wanted to work with us. We wanted to work with them, and we wanted them to want to work with us. And so that was a way to find out. So that was our process with hiring the videographer. Couple interviews, and then actually had him do a sample video for us. And both him and our content manager, Sarah, have both just been every day It's not me. If I have anything that I have an ego about, every day I'm thankful for the fact that we did the process the way Impact talked about it and the way the book talked about it. And we found two people that I can't, I don't think we would be where we are without them. And so I'm thankful every day that we have both of them on the team.
I mean, I think you started initially with 8,000 visitors, and now you're at 61, the last that I knew
Yeah.
about. And that's all with Sarah's help as a content manager. What makes Sarah, not necessarily only talking about Sarah, but what makes a good content manager in your view that you say, this is exactly why we're having this success? What are
Yeah.
the attributes that Sarah comes with or a content manager should have?
So we're a company that levels concrete. It is not an exciting, sexy kind of industry. Although it's really cool when you watch that
Yeah.
concrete kind of float, there is something really cool about it. But when we hired Sarah, part of me in the back of my mind's like, how is anybody gonna want to write articles about concrete for years? But Sarah has really the idea, and even more recently, I can see the excitement that she has in the outcome and what we're actually seeing as a result of the work she's doing. And she's also our SEO specialist. So she's really spends a lot of time looking at the data and looking at, and so the writing is like almost a smallish part of the job. It's really the big picture of how is the work I'm doing in writing articles, how is it affecting the company? How am I, the job that I'm doing as a writer, as a content manager, how is that growing the company? How is it affecting? We're a franchise company, so we have 50 locations across the country. And the work that she is doing is putting food on the table for hundreds and hundreds of people that work for all of those franchises. I think that's really, I don't know how you hire for that, but you hire someone who gets some joy out of the fact that she's helping build a company that supports all of those people and sells a service, a good service to a lot of people as well. So it's a little of the intangible, but it's not intangible because you can see it. You
Yeah.
can see specific numbers and specific growth. And I was just talking to her yesterday about the numbers for May, and we just talked about the idea that how cool it is. Not everywhere that if you were a writer, would you be able to look and see this is exactly what my writing has done in specific numbers over the past month, past year.
It's actually one of the biggest mistakes that I see companies make when they try to implement the Ask You Answer by themselves. They're really intent because writing content is a big component of the Ask You Answer. But what they are looking for mostly is the quality of writing and having a degree in English and having whatever to get the best content writer.
Hmm.
But what you actually need is someone who can write, who has a good understanding of grammatical structure and SEO and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe even more than that is that hunger to own it, that creativity, that also they're going to be a driving force of that program, of that change, of that cultural change within the organization. So if you have someone who is not comfortable with owning this outside of their desk,
Yeah.
and going to the salespeople and interviewing people and standing up and saying, hey, we did this and that was awesome and we need to replicate that, or even fight with passion about what they believe in, then
Yeah.
that's not really going to work out as well.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Both Josh and Sarah both they own their position. They really own it. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why they're successful.
We are at almost out of time, so I want to ask you, what are the so to finish this off, let's do a little segment that I called a 2-minute rant. And I don't know if you can think of something from the top of your head, but I would love you to just rant on a topic of your choice for about 90 seconds, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to switch this up from what I was thinking about because I think one of the things that it's related to what I just said. One of the things that really annoys me is just the level of mediocrity. When I look at businesses, and one of the things that we get all the time from our customers in our reviews is they actually showed up on time. And I'm like, that's probably the number one thing that we see in our reviews is they showed up on time. And part of me is really that's the bar that we're trying to beat is just showing up on time. And I've thought a lot about that idea of mediocrity in business, and it doesn't take hardly anything to be better than your competition because most companies just operate on this level of kind of mediocrity. But I really thought about why is that? And it's related, I feel like it's related to what we were just talking about. It's hard to do a job well, and we get our validation a lot of times from the work that we do. And to protect ourselves, we settle into this level of mediocrity. It's, to feel good about myself is a lot easier if I'm just even. There aren't any highs, there aren't any lows. I'm just doing a mediocre job. And so now I can feel better about myself most of the time. Whereas if you're really trying to do a good job and you get your self-worth out of your results, then you're in for trouble because sometimes you're going to succeed and sometimes you're not. So that's my rant is let's get over it. Let's get over this idea that our self-worth is from what we do, and let's just realize we're valuable and let's just do the best job we can. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. And that's okay.
Actually, Chris Mars said, only mediocre people are always at their best.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
yeah. All right. So, speaking of books and how they change our life, what is a book that, let's say, in the last 6 to 12 months has really impacted your life that you want to share with everyone?
Yeah. Yeah. You asked the question in notes you sent me earlier, a book that has changed my life. And I could go through a bunch of books, but I heard Richard Rohr on a Brene Brown podcast, which Brene Brown, her books I'm going to cheat. Her books changed my life as well. But I read a book of his called Falling Upward, and it's from a spiritual side of things. Spirituality is a huge part of my life, but he really talked about this idea of two halves of your life, how important both halves were. It wasn't that one was better than the other, maybe the second half better, but the first half is really discovering who you are and discovering your strengths and your weaknesses and building your life and marriage and business and all that kind of stuff. But then the second half of your life is really forgetting all that, realizing that all of that stuff that you did really isn't the important stuff. It's really not the meat of what life should be about. And that was huge for me. That was a lot of times people think if it's all about producing and it's all about making something of your life, by the time you get toward the end of your life, you're actually diminishing in value because you're not producing like you should. And his argument is no, at that point, you actually can become what a person who is really actually who they were meant to be instead of just someone who's working to produce and someone who's working. That book was it was literally life changing for me. I can't recommend
Awesome.
it enough.
I'll put that in the show notes for anyone who's interested. That sounds like an amazing book.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to be in touch, where would that best place be? Do you hang out on LinkedIn a lot, or should they
Yeah.
just?
I keep meaning to hang out on LinkedIn more, but I don't quite as often. You just go to our website, a1concrete.com, and go to About Us and stuff. And I think my contact information in there, or my email is in there as well. So you can reach out that way. Just dps at a1concrete.com if you want to email me.
Very good. With that, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your thoughts. There was so many interesting nuggets of wisdom in there. I really appreciate it, and I will hopefully see you next time when we get to Impact Live.
Yeah.
And we actually talk. Thank you
That
so
would,
much.
yeah, this has been a real joy. Thank you.
Thank you.